Meanwhile, the 19-year-old Jamie Storr getting his first start of the season.
My background is basically my mother's from Japan. She was born and raised in Japan, came over when she was in her late 20s. Ended up meeting my father, is actually born and raised in Brampton. And they ended up getting married. They had my brother. He was born in '71, so he's about 4 years older than me. As a family, it wasn't like my parents played hockey a lot growing up. My mother never seen hockey before, and my father played a little bit because they didn't have very much money. So he had one pair of skates, and he said when he outgrew them, that was the end of it. So for us, it was my brother was kind of the guinea pig. He was the one they put into hockey around 6 or 7, and he kind of got playing. And because I was a younger brother, I ended up getting a lot of the privileges of tailing to rinks and ended up going on the ice and skating and getting involved. And my earliest memory was I think I was 2. And I was just learning how to skate. My mom was trying to teach me how to skate. So she couldn't skate. She'd just walk around the rink with her skates on, but holding onto the boards. And it was right across the street from where my grandmother actually lived when she got older. It was a little arena in Brampton. And so the story goes, I kept falling, couldn't get up and kept falling. And I just kept going over and over. And they couldn't believe that I just wouldn't give up. Like even my mom said, I felt so bad. I just hoping he'd quit. And as I went on and on, I just kept going. And finally, by the end of it, I actually crossed the ice. Right now, after maybe a couple of weeks go by, and my mom would take me public skating and go out, and sure enough, the memory I have is I remember she fell and hit her head, and she split her head open, and then the ambulance came. They had to take her out, and my dad had to come over and kind of take us away. But the funny part is that he said, even from a young age, just the relentlessness, the never giving up was kind of a part of what was instilled just in, trying to learn the game. So, I benefited a lot. And then as I got older, we started to go through playing in the minor hockey associations of Brampton. Robbie Cleaners was a 7-year-old select team that we started on. Then it became a AAA program after that. I played AA my first year as a player, and then they needed a goalie. So, my dad knew more about goaltending than he did as a player. He said, I can help you a little bit more as a goalie than I could a player. So I said, well, sure, I'll try it. And it was maybe 10 or 11, and at the end of the day, kind of took off. And, the minor hockey was, it was good. I was the child that I think after maybe the first couple weeks of playing, my dad said, you're talented, but you're frustrating to watch because you don't work very hard. So he said, your brother works really hard and trains, and I'm going to go watch his hockey, and I'll send your mom to go watch yours. So for about 3 or 4 years, my dad didn't come to very many games. He let my mom come to most of my games, and there was no pressure on me playing. It didn't matter how well I did or didn't do. And around 13, 14, I finally said to my dad, I said, what do you think I need to work on? And he pulled me aside and said, there's some things. He told me at that point, he said, I want to tell you everything, because he said, you have a lot of room to kind of make up for. But I recognized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. So I was like, what can I do to try and get better? And it took off. At 14, I ended up playing junior, again for the Brampton Capitals. We played against the Blades. And at 15, I was playing on Team Canada. 16 all the way through, and then I ended up getting drafted to the OHL at 15 playing, and then in the NHL at 18. So it took off in a hurry, but it was an interesting kind of lead up, because the young ages we watch our kids go through now, where the parents are really serious and on top of it. My dad kind of let go at that point and said, I don't mind you playing the sport, but I'm not gonna watch you just kind of go through the motions. If you like doing it, you can play. And when it kind of clicked for me, it took off.
Do you think your dad pulling back was a catalyst for you?
I think, a lot of tendencies are, the characteristics of who you are instilled in you regardless. But I think the funny thing was, it was my dream, not his. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, his was more of a, hey, I'll support you. But, I watch the same with my own kids. When I come to the rink, if they try as hard as they can, I'm proud of them. It doesn't matter whether they touch a puck or don't touch a puck. But if they're lazy or they don't try or they're, a little scared, it frustrates you because you want to see them just try. And I think that the funny thing is that, I think that kind of helped just, make the game my own. It was more about me at the young ages. It was more just about having friends. You go to the rink. I remember I was more concerned about the sleepover after the game than I was how the game was going to go. But when we got to a point once it became realistic that you could actually do something with the game, then it became kind of an interesting concept, and the game changed. Well, I think so there's so many moments through junior hockey, because I had a fond junior career, a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. At 14, just coming out of Bantam and supposed to play minor midget, to playing junior B, which was where my brother played. To be able to play with 20-year-olds at that point was a great story, a lot of fun. Then to all of a sudden being the starter that year, was amazing. It was just an amazing feat. But the funny part is, all the way along, I never really thought that it was undoable. I never thought that I couldn't do it. I always felt like everything was attainable. But I would say, getting drafted to the OHL, we had to go in the first 3 rounds because we were on underage. So my draft year was actually the following year. So getting drafted and then making the team and being able to play. And then, it started on the Team Canada. Once I started to get to a point where I saw the World Juniors, saw the under 17, under 18, and, getting a chance to play for your country, and you win gold, and then, you carry on, and all of a sudden you see the guys that did it before are getting drafted to the NHL. Not drafted, but they're getting drafted in the first round. They're high picks. And you're like, man, if I could make the World Junior team, that'd be a big feat. So, I got to go through the Team Canada program from under 17. We won gold. I played for the under 18 team. We won gold. And, when we got a chance to actually play for the World Juniors, that was going to be a big stepping stone. So, it turned out that I got to play my 3rd year in junior. I got to play for the World Juniors. We went to the Czech Republic at the time, and we won gold that year. Everybody on the team prior to that wasn't drafted to the NHL. After we won gold, everyone went the first round. So it was a great feat for us. And then the following year, coming back, we had an opportunity again to represent Canada again. And we were the first team that ever went 7-0. We didn't lose a game in the tournament. So it was a unique part to be a part of that as well. And then somewhere in the middle of that, I got invited to play in the Olympics. So, it was an opportunity to represent Canada in the Olympics. It was still amateurs playing, it wasn't professionals. And, at that point, my general manager of my junior team said that he felt it would be best that I stay back. And, it was my draft year. He said, you're going to play all the games here. You'd be the 3rd goalie on the Olympic team. Now, fast forwarding through it, they won silver. I would have got a silver medal at the Olympics. And, but sure enough, that summer I got a chance to play in the World Championships with all the NHL players. We won gold for the first time in, I think it was like 40 years. And, to be able to play with Luc Robitaille, Brendan Shanahan, Steve Thomas, Joe Sakic, as a 17-year-old, they were my idols. So, that was a great experience. And, it's been one after the other. You get drafted to the Kings. Who's the captain of the Kings at the time? It's Wayne Gretzky, and then you kind of carry on from there. So. I got drafted to the Kings, so that was a great opportunity. I still remember the draft. They said, my agent told me, he said, there's going to be 2 defensemen going that we figure will go first overall. If one goes first overall, you're going second overall. If the other one goes, they'll go 1 and 2. So it just depends on, they couldn't figure out which one, I think it was at the time Ottawa was picking, they couldn't figure out which one Ottawa actually wanted. So it turned out that, the defenseman went first overall. And maybe it was Florida that had the first pick. But the defenseman went first overall, so my agent turned around and looked at me and he said, you're going second overall to Anaheim, because he thought that was the defenseman that they wanted. And turned out that wasn't the defenseman they wanted. So Anaheim took Oleg Tverdovsky second overall. And, the next pick came. You're not sure where you're going to go. And I ended up getting picked 7th by Los Angeles, which was kind of a neat deal, because Wayne Gretzky was still in the game, and was a huge figure in hockey and just in life. And so when I show up at camp in LA, just a young kid, we have Yari Curry, Rob Blake, Daryl Sador, you had Pat Conacher, Tony Granato, all these greats. Barry Melrose was the coach. Bruce McNall was still the owner at the time. He was just kind of at the end of his tenure there. And as we came through, it ended up, we got to a point where, you show up at camp and we start the camp in Van Nuys, and the trainer came up and said, "Hey, Gretz wants to talk to you." So I said, "Okay." So he said, "Hey, I know it's hard for you being an 18-year-old living in a hotel. Would you like to come, live with me and my wife and my family?" And I'm like, "You know what? We'd love to." So Matt Johnson and myself were roommates, and they said, "We'll take both of you guys in. You guys can come live with the family." And so that night, of course, we weren't very smart. We decided to have a water fight in the room, and we put the air conditioner on full. We both woke up with sore throats the next day. So our GM at the time said, "You're not going to Mr. Gretzkys until you're 100% better." So we had to wait a couple of days, and we ended up moving in with the Gretzkys. And it's like a movie. You move in, they live off Mulholland Drive. Don Henley lives just down the street. Vanna White's right around the corner. They had nicer cars than we had salary. So he'd say, "Just take the car out." And I looked at Matt Johnson. I said, "If we crash this, we're going to lose our money for the whole year." So, it was a great, great experience. Unique. You get up. They had a cook that lived in with them. So, we get up in the mornings, and he'd say, "Just tell the cook what you want for breakfast." So Matt would order steak and eggs, and I could order, Belgian waffle with strawberries, and just a different experience. But there was everything from, after games, we'd get in his car to come home, and he would stop, and he always had a restaurant that would stay open just for him, and he would basically have an entourage that would eat after every game with him, and we'd stop, and you'd have a 7-course meal. They'd have 3 or 4 servers, 2 chefs stay on, and they'd feed you all the way through. And at the end, Gretz always looked after the bill. He paid the bill, paid for everyone. And, just one moment to the next of living with the Gretzkys was, it's like a dream. But the one thing it taught me was it didn't matter how successful you were. It's the type of person that you become. When Gretz first started playing, an older player took him in when he was 18. And, going forward, he thought that it would be a great opportunity to do the same for us. And, the memories that you go by in hockey, they go by quick. But, the opportunities you get to see some of the people that you surround yourself with are second to none. I think, you see the value of what it does for the young kids. It helps take them away from, their family environment. And instead of just putting them on their own where they have to fend for themselves, they still have a family environment to look after. But what it does a lot is it also the role models. When you get around people that you feel are people you look up to, especially at that point, it really helps kind of settle in. And you see older players still do the same thing. Mary Lemieux took Sidney Crosby in, and it still happens through today. And, it was just amazing to see the best player in the world, what a nice person he was. When I finished with the Kings, I ended up bouncing around a couple teams, and it just became, after 9 years in the NHL, it was going to be a little bit harder to be set where you feel like, you're going to be in a situation that you still see the light of day. You still see yourself having the opportunity to play at the highest level and succeed. And I remember I was in Philly, and, we were playing, and it was a long year. I got called up for about 22 games that year, and, just the opportunity to try and stay up. It felt like so much had to go on just to even get the opportunity to be at the NHL level again. And one of my friends was over in Germany. I was about 29 at the time, almost 30. And he said, "You know what, we have an opportunity to come play. It's a great level. The pay's really well, and it gives you an opportunity to still, play professionally. But, we play 3 games a week. Every Monday's off. 2 weeks off in in November. You can go skiing. You can take the family on a vacation. 2 weeks off in February. It's a 52-game schedule instead of 82 games, and you get paid tax-free. So, in the NHL, you're getting taxed 50%. So you could play in the NHL making $450,000, and you could, after living a season, you basically come home, you have $2,000 in the bank. Going to Germany, you pretty much save everything you have because they cover most of the expenses. So it was a great opportunity to be outside of, the game itself for us. It allowed us to, play longer, play more years, and play competitive, where you felt like it was almost like the old IHL when I first started. A lot of great older players stayed and played. We were allowed 11 imports, so there's 11 North Americans, either Canadian, American, or even European, and they had to have 11 Germans. And the schedule was great, the hockey was great, and my wife's family, her mother is from Germany, born and raised in Germany at a young age, and their parents came over when she was I think 8, and came to Canada, moved into Brampton, and to be able to see the heritage, to be able to go back, and we were the town over from where she grew up. Because we had heritage there, it was neat, and the kids were young enough; they really had an opportunity to to kind of embrace the culture. So it was a great experience. We really enjoyed it, and after about the third year, we just felt that the kids are getting to a point where are they going to grow up in Germany? Is this going to be their background? Is this going to be their foundation? They were 7 and 5, I think, at the time, and our youngest one was just on the verge of. My wife was pregnant with the youngest one, so we felt like if we're going to make a change, then the opportunity was now to kind of, it was my chance to actually give back to my family and say, you know what, you guys have been putting me first for the last 20 years. Now it's time for me to put you guys first. And, I retired and moved to LA. We had a house there, and we've raised the kids for the last 10 years there. And that's pretty much taken us to where we are now. So, we always played, with the fact of what would it be like if, we moved home, just even for a period of time, to give the kids the exposure to be around the grandparents, to be around cousins and all of our family members that we haven't been since we were 18. We were 18 when we left, so it's been over 25 years. A lot of people come and go. We're 10 years too late. Both my parents have moved on. They passed away. My grandmother's passed. I have only family member I have left is my brother, and he's in Ottawa. So for me, it's a long time coming that. I should have made a decision a little bit earlier. I would have been able to enjoy some of the later years of my parents' life. But for my wife's family, everyone's healthy and well. And, I said, this is a unique opportunity. It would be we looked at what could we do that would kind of hit all aspects. My oldest was on the verge of playing junior hockey. He was going to go away on his own. My youngest was in a position where he's done really well for himself, but in California there's only so much hockey you can play and so many games, and you have to travel a lot. And my daughter was at a point where she's pursuing, she wanted to go to an Ivy League school, and she really, looks after her grades and, her sports, and she's really, involved in the community. So she was like, it would be a unique opportunity for her to study outside of the U.S. and, just add to her experience of trying to get into these schools. And for my wife, she was like, instead of sending the kids away, it's a lot more fun to maintain the family unit and to follow them. So when we looked at it, we said, well, what are possibilities? And so we started just kind of kicking tires and looking around, seeing what's available. And, at the start, we checked into some of the different areas and different leagues. And, one of the leagues I was kind of most familiar with was the OJHL. That's where I played. My dad actually in the late 80s, early 90s, tried to bring a team to Brampton. He was one of the founders that allocated the ice, went over the whole procedure of how do you bring a team to a new city. They gave him all the stuff you have to get set up, and then they go through an approval process, and they approve the new team coming in. At the end, they ended up taking all the stuff that he had put, and they said, you know what, instead of you bringing a new team in, we're actually going to give the Etobicoke Capitals the opportunity to step in and play in Brampton. So they'll move from Etobicoke to Brampton. So the Brampton Capitals were formed. And, for me, because my dad had involvement in trying to actually run one of these teams when I was young, and then my brother ended up playing for Georgetown. My dad coached in Georgetown with Peter Sturgeon. So I remember going to games at the old Ellicott Center there, and you would follow my dad and my brother around and run around the stands watching these teams play. And I was like, this is a great league. It was a great memories, and even if you didn't play any higher than this was an unbelievable experience. So when we started looking around, it was one of those things that Oakville came available. I met with one of the owners, Wayne Parabou, and it was just an opportunity to see what would be even the possibilities. I never thought past Oakville. I thought that we'll just kind of see what they're about. And after meeting with Wayne in Los Angeles, right away, he just said, look, you're the guy that we've been looking for. Everything that you're trying to do, we feel it would be amazing for our community, for our team. Our kids have grown out of the game now. We're no longer kind of able to be hands-on like we'd like to be. So, we're looking at just trying to make sure that we put it in good hands going forward. And after the meeting, Wayne actually was going to exit and say, you know what, this is all you. You're going to step in and take over and do everything. He said, you know what, if you don't mind, I'll stay in as a minority because I feel like, the stuff that you're doing, I see value in, and I have no problem in investing and being a part of it. So Wayne and one of his partners, Andre, stayed on as a minority partners with the Blades, and Tony Canati, that was one of Wayne's partners in the initial team, basically was the person that I purchased the majority shares off of. And once that kind of became available, all of a sudden I was like, okay, now do we stay in Los Angeles and just send our oldest away to play junior, or how can we kind of make everything work? And one of the things we talked about was the family unit, and just the ability, all the teaching, all the learning, that we've done from past playing, of all the years. And then the last 10 years, we've been heavily involved in minor hockey, heavily involved in USA hockey. And we've been around a lot of the NHL programs. That's really kind of helped us kind of solidify our own idea of what we could bring, to a hockey program. So when it came available, I think the main concept was it was a great opportunity to just bring something to a program that I think normally wouldn't be there, because all the availability we had, all the access we had, most teams don't. And all the opportunities and just the teaching and the fundamentals that we're able to add on to, it just it more solidifies a program to be even better than what it was in the past. And I think that's been our main focus is we want to make this the best junior program, not junior A, junior program, OHL, it doesn't matter. You look at what you have access to, your training, your on ice, your development, into your game situations, into how do we treat the players. It's not just about the success of me personally. I have nothing to do. I told the kids, I said, I've already succeeded as much as I possibly could in hockey. This is about you. I'm willing to to struggle at times for your success. I'm not worried about my own. So I think just the whole environment, you feel like you're able to kind of give these kids an opportunity where it's all about them, and that's our main focus. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I'm a father, right? I'm no different than any of the other fathers or parents. You care about all the kids. You want to see all of them have success. At the same token, you have to discipline them. There's times that they don't do what they're told, or they misbehave, and you have to be firm with it. So the reality is that I want Oakville to be an opportunity where every kid looks at it and says, it's just going to be the best place to play hockey. And how do you do that? Well, you take a little piece of every program that you feel is the best program that you'd like to see your kid play on, and you try and add to that, and you try and take a little piece. So we took the National Development Program in the U.S., and we said, well, what do they do that's different than the USHL teams or OHL teams or any junior league that you feel really develops their players? They really try and prepare their kids to be able to play college hockey at 18, to be true freshmen, which is really hard. So physically, you have to be ready. Well, what are things that we can do? So one of the things we did was we took the strength conditioning program from years past, and most OJHL teams are going to be minimal because you have a small budget. There's not too much you can work with. Well, we've taken a budget that was $2,500 for the whole year, where 22 players would go work out once a week. A kid would come in at 160. He'd leave at 160 by the end of the year because there wasn't a lot of time during the year to really focus on physical conditioning. So we said, well, what does a national team do that's different than that? Well, they lift 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week. Okay, well, are we capable of doing that? What's the cost? Well, the cost went from $2,500 to almost $40,000. So you look, that's a big jump in cost. But where's the putback on it? Some of these other teams will spend $40,000 or $50,000 on players. I said, you know what? I think the idea would be if you have a player that signs with the Oakville Blades and we spend the money on his development, it's gonna be unified. Parents are gonna see the value. The kid's gonna see the value, and that's the first thing we asked the kids. We said, "Are you sure that you want to play college hockey next year?" And every one of them said yes. So last week they lifted Monday and Tuesday, and they came up and they said, "Jamie, I can't even stand up. My arms are killing me. Like I have trouble holding my stick." And I asked them after, "Do you want to play college hockey next year?" And they said, "Yep." So at the end of the day, they recognize what it's going to take to get there. And that's our main focus. Is if we can continue building off of that, then I think we're on the right path. Well, I think you become a little bit of everyone that you've had in the past. Coaching it's not it's managing personalities. Not one player responds to the same the same feedback or criticism. Some players don't respond to any criticism. Some players you have to scream at just to get them to move. But it's the philosophies I try and instill are basically ones of kind of years past. John Wooden's one of my favorite people of all time to study. And when you read his books, when you follow his philosophies, he was an unbelievable teacher. He's an unbelievable person. He taught life lessons that carried far beyond the basketball courts at UCLA. And to this day, he's probably been one of the best innovators of how to motivate and create a working environment where people will last a lifetime. One of the biggest things they looked at is you can scream and yell and you'll get short-term results. But if you want long-term results, players have to know you care about them. There has to be a love behind it. And he had a great way of teaching his players. And you try and bring a lot of those philosophies in where they recognize that different ways to think. We talked about yesterday, we said, what's our team goal? And the player said to win a national championship. I said, okay, can we win the national championship tomorrow? And they said, no. So I said, then, well, what's our goal? They said, well, to win the next game. Great goal, okay? How do you get an opportunity to win the national championship? Well, they said, you have to win the next game. I said, you have to make the playoffs. So our first goal should be make the playoffs. And then once you make the playoffs, it's going to be to win the first round. And then it's going to be to win the second round, and so on and so forth. And what you find is these short-term goals allow the team to kind of have a process where they don't get too high or too low based on their initial process. And it allows them to really focus in on our process of development. I told the kids, I said, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose in a game. What matters is all the stuff you've been working on in practice, all the little attention to detail we put into place is what everything's all about. The end result of the games will look after themselves. But the big thing for us is we really need to focus in on our what we have control over, which is our practice habits, our preparation, our work ethic. And it's been a great group of kids, great staff. Mike Tarantino, Jordan Sillinger, Craig Clayton. Everybody's done an unbelievable job and basically buying in and being a part of it. And it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Last question,
I think the Blade season last year was the Blade season last year. It was 2018, 2019. We only have 8 returning players. So at the end of the day, we have to focus on the season as a totally new project. We have 21 players right now. We have basically, it's 13 new players on the team. A lot of them, it's their first year in junior hockey. And it's going to be their opportunity to just, develop as individuals and as a team. And we feel we have a team that should be able to compete night in, night out. We feel we have a team that's capable of reaching our goals, which is, going through, winning the next game and giving ourselves a chance to make the playoffs and then carry on from there. But we feel that, one of the first ways of creating a team was I'd rather have a team with a little experience and a lot of talent rather than the other way around. So when we looked at it, we kind of went and we had opportunities to go with some older players that were maybe a little bit less skilled. You'd be a little bit more comfortable at the start of the year. But what we look at is the skill level of these players. Our end goal of how we choose a player is we feel they're capable of being a D1 commit. And we feel all 21 kids in this team have the opportunity to be a D1 commit over the next coming years.